Welcome to another episode of the Animal Liberation Hour, where we seek insight from animal rights and liberation activists around the world so that we can think, reflect, learn, and be inspired. It's Trey here with you today, and I can't wait to get to the episode with Gwenna Hunter. But first, we want to let you know that the Animal Liberation Hour is a podcast by Animal Activism Mentorship. AAM's mission is to grow and strengthen the animal rights movement by providing a space for activists to have access to a community and educational resources. From one-on-one mentorship to free workshops and trainings to this podcast, AAM aims to empower humans to take action for animals so that the world will have more activists and we can achieve liberation sooner. For more information, visit animalactivismmentorship.com or our linktree, which you can find in the show notes. There you can sign up for a free mentor, you can donate so that we can continue this work, and you can keep up with everything AAM. Today's episode is with the absolutely incredible Gwenna Hunter. I had actually never met Gwenna before, and getting to know her through this podcast episode was a great experience. She and I feel like we connected on so many levels, and she's just doing incredible work, and I'm so glad that all of us are going to be able to learn from her today. We talked about so many different topics, from self-care and burnout to how she went vegan through a dream. Can't wait for you to hear about that. Without further ado, the incredible, the amazing Gwenna Hunter. On the Animal Liberation Hour today, we have Gwenna Hunter. I'm so excited to chat with her. She's been doing some amazing work that I can't wait to dive into. Gwenna, I just wanted to ask how you went vegan and how you got into animal rights.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for reaching out to me and having me. This is an honor. So my journey began February. Well, the awakening of it, I would say it started probably in like 2008, being, little taps on the shoulder here and there that I wasn't really receiving. But in February of 2016, it was a dream that caused me to see everything from a totally different perspective. So basically in the dream, I'm flying in the sky and I see this beautiful green pasture. Everything was extraordinarily beautiful and bright and vibrant and just alive. And then all of a sudden I see this cow that is absolutely gorgeous. I mean, this cow was beautiful. And I automatically knew her or something. And it was like I knew, anyway, all of a sudden these two tunnels opened up between our eyes and I went through one of them. And as I merged with her, I became one with her and I possessed all of the cow's consciousness. And literally her whole life, was my life. So I experienced myself as a cow, being a mother, as being a friend, as having a community, how I felt about humans, giving birth, having I had a whole experience as the cow in just seconds. And so I came out of the dream. When I woke up, I was crying so hard because I'm like, oh my God, they love and we eat them. It was like I woke up in a horror movie. I was like my mind was blown. And what I felt more than anything was the purity of their love. It was just, so incredibly pure. And I still felt it as I was awake. It wasn't as strong as it was when I was in the dream, but I could still feel something on me. So I'm sitting there and I'm just because I'm a believer, I'm into the supernatural, all of that, but also at the same time, I give room for skepticism. So I'm like, okay, maybe I ate something weird. There's no way. I start going through all these doubts. And while I'm laying there, while I'm awake, not in a dream, I'm fully awake, laying in the bed. And all of a sudden I feel this really warm energy right over my heart. And it wasn't warm like a heater warm. It was like a love warm. I don't even have the right language for it, but it was this warmth. And I put my hand there. When I did, my whole soul was just like encapsulated with peace, complete peace, and peace that we don't like. It's possible for us to experience it, but if we knew what it felt like, we would shut the F up. We would like really shift our lives and really awaken, because it was a peace that was so unconditional and so still and loving and quiet, and nothing was required of me, just to be. And I felt like I would have like left with it. Like I would have been like, bye earth, bye family, friends. Like if I would have had the option to like leave this planet and go with that, I would have. That's how good it felt and beautiful it felt. So then I knew at that point, and that probably lasted like maybe 3 seconds. I knew what I experienced was real. And I'm like, well, God, if cows love, pigs love, chickens love, I'm like, holy shit. Of course, everybody loves. Like it was just like, I can't believe I never even explored this on my own, and that I had to have this experience, because I had always been like a searcher and a reader, and I'm going to figure this reality out, like always, trying to play the game and solve the puzzle of why we're here. And all of that, never even thought that a cow would love their own children. Like, wow. And so I felt like if I tell people this, they're going to just like get it like I got it. That's what my little pure little mind was assuming, that, oh, I just got to tell. That's why I got this, so I could tell people, which is still true. It is still true for me to share this dream. But I felt like if I just told people that cows love their children, they'll connect, especially if you're a parent or if you're a child. They love their siblings, their brothers and sisters. They love their mothers. The mothers love their daughters. The sons love their fathers. Like if people heard it like that, that it would cause an immediate awakening, like it did with me. And I realized that that's not, you might get a few, but for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, people are so incredibly disconnected from animals usually. I mean, when I first went vegan, I'd been vegetarian for around 7 years or something like that, and I just never made the connection with like dairy. And I was talking about that with a female friend of mine who's an activist and has been an activist for longer than I have. And I was kind of like, man, why didn't I realize that they produce milk because they're mothers? Like, is that just because like I'm being an ignorant man, or like what is that? She's like, Trey, I was 30 before I realized it, and I'm a woman, and and that really hit me. I was like, man, the disconnect is just so real. But regardless of having like an intense dream like you had, or a vision, even if we just stepped into the animal's place in our minds, if we just close our eyes and pretend like we're going through the emotions of, what an animal is going through. I mean, if people took the time to do that and really put themselves in the animal's place, I mean, I think that it would be hard for them to come out on the other side and not be vegan. But, I'm being optimistic like you were when you said, well, if I just tell everybody this, the world will change. And of course, we know it's a little bit more difficult than that.
I had to learn, from scratch that that's not how it works, but that would have been nice, huh?
Yeah. I mean, so when you had this dream, how long after that did it take for you to kind of really let that set in and sort of go vegan and, start taking action for the animals? And what was that journey like? How did you decide what kind of action you wanted to take? How did that play out?
So right after I had that dream, I would say that same week, I I ended up coming across the video by Aaron Janice called Dairy is Effing Scary. And I watched that. And I thought the light bulb had already gone off. It really was like the sun. And I saw it and I was just like, because, at this point I've already like merged with the cow. I'm still in this like powerful energy of it and connectedness with the cow. And so when I saw the video, I didn't see a cow. To me, I saw another woman. I saw another female. It wasn't like, oh my God, this poor cow. It was just like, and so for me, I didn't have a lot of the illusions. A lot of my illusions were gone at that point. So for me, what I saw was the clear blueprint for slavery and how that same blueprint has been used over and over and over and over and over and over again for different humans, different species, different insects, different, like everything, the environment, the trees, because what we, for some reason, we like the story that this person was put here on this planet for you to do what you want. Oh, don't worry. They don't feel the same. It doesn't, they don't feel pain the same way. So don't worry about it. Oh, they'll forget about their kids. They'll be okay. Desensitizing you to a new commodified population. And so I saw it so clearly and I'm like, holy shit, like the programming on this planet is real and it's strong and it's powerful and they get you, from the womb. And so for me, I saw kidnapping, I saw rape, I saw slavery, I saw torture. And like I said, it was the same blueprint. And so when I saw that, that's when I went vegan. So it was the same week because I still in my mind wasn't sure. Like I thought I still was under the illusion in a sense, even though I had merged with the cow, but for some reason that piece I was still kind of an illusion in that part. So when I saw that, because in my mind, I'm like, well, they give their milk and the farmer, has on his blue jean overalls and his little rubber boots, and he sits on the wooden stoop and he sits in front of her and she says moo and he takes the milk and everybody's good. Like that, I bought it. And so then when I saw the real truth, like it was even like, I know I cried watching that. I was just like, wow. And on top of it, and I'm like, I want nothing ever to do with milk, cheese, like never, ever. And so I felt that I connected with that energy of like what I call the angry vegan. So it was like, I was so pissed. And I'm like, so I've been lied to all this time. I've been taught this in the public schools. Oh, the milk and dairy industry, they fund the public schools. Oh, these are just like marketing. Like it started like all the awakenings were just like popping off in my head. And I was just like, who's ruling our society? Who's deciding that this is how it will be? Like I started questioning everything. And and I was pissed. So for the first few months, I was just like posting slaughter videos and this kind of stuff and just like being really upset. But for me, the real me is a lover. I like love. It's easier for me. It's more sustainable. And I'm more powerful when I'm operating in love. Not to say that there isn't power in anger and darkness, because there is, and it gets stuff done. But sometimes if you hang out there too long, it can grow into something that you may have a hard time controlling. So for me, I like to, I let myself feel anger too. I still feel it. The angry vegan is still in here. She still exists. She still wants to roar and come out. And sometimes we do. And then we go on right on back so I can get back to love and be sustainable and just feel good. It's just a personal choice. I used to have judgment about this, but I don't have judgment about it anymore because I understand it's all just a choice. And some people operate better in anger by pushing it out and projecting it and sharing it and attracting people on the same similar frequency. So I'm learning to watch my judgment because I realize there's a place for all of it, because there's so many different types of humans on the planet. Not every, somebody doesn't want to hear about spiritual, a cow and that's going to sound like silly to them because that's not how they think or operate. And I get it. I'm for who I'm for. If I'm not for you, it is not personal. You find your tribe and speak that language. So, I understand that different types of activism are necessary, even the ones we don't like, even the ones that look harsh, and I'm just now starting to really learn that. So I don't know if I answered your question because I'll go all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to be angry, especially when all of this first clicks for you, I mean, when you discover any injustice in the world and start putting yourself in their position or start realizing that you've been lied to for your whole entire life. I mean, it's hard not to be angry, and I agree with you. I mean, there's a place for everyone with their different kinds of strategies. I mean, for pressure campaigns, I mean, anger can be a good tool. I mean, to if your goal is to annoy the hell out of some company until they do what you want, then anger and resentment can be a good tool as long as it's somewhat controlled, I would say.
Yeah, and I think that's the issue. It's like we're all babies walking around with like machine guns. You know what I mean? When it comes to like our power and our emotions. And so I think for me to stay safe, stay on the love side. Because if you go over there to like, I can set stuff off. So I'm better on the love side because my dark can get dark. So it's like, let's just stay over here and hang out.
Yeah, everybody's got to know themselves and do the kind of activism that they think is best. And that's kind of what we encourage at Animal Activism Mentorship too. Like when people sign up for a free mentor to help them with their activism, we really try to, help everybody get in that space where they think they'll be most effective for the animals. And that's what it's all about. We all have different personalities, different things to offer.
That's right. That's right. And like I said, I admit I'm just getting into this, like seeing this. I was, have my judgments on certain, and I still do, but not to the extent to where it's like bothering me. It's like, well, that's how it has to be. So yeah, I'm really coming out of a lot of judgment.
Yeah. I mean, I think what helped me come out of some of that, and even start doing some of the things that I was judging before, activism wise, is just reading about social justice history. I mean, some of the things that have worked and some of the attitudes toward the people who now we look back as, creating some of those pivotal moments in history for the better, looking back at some of the words they said and some of the decisions they made and things like that. I mean, that really opened up my eyes to there's so many different ways to achieve liberation and so many, obviously different kinds of attitudes and personalities and, all these people just using their talents and doing it the way they think it should be done. And sometimes those things, weave together, kind of like, say, for instance, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr., they both had a very different approach in a lot of ways, but it kind of came together because people were like, well, if you don't listen to Martin Luther King Jr., you're gonna have to listen to Malcolm X, and maybe y'all don't want to deal with that. So, but yeah, I think those things are great.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask you about your current work at the food bank in a little bit, but before we get there, tell me about the kinds of different activism that you've done since you became an activist, and maybe if there's any lessons we can learn from each of those things and kind of how it got you on the path to, the kind of work you're doing now.
Yeah. So, after I had that dream, I was ready. I was like, let me start volunteering. And then I started seeing protests and marches. And I'm like, I want to go to this stuff. So I would go to protests, and protests are very therapeutic. because you can if you're shouting or yelling, you can get some of that energy out, even though you're kind of projecting it into the animals, and it's probably some personal stuff, but it is therapeutic in a sense. But what I noticed for me, I had so many triggers. So, someone being a jerk while we're doing it, I would pay it, you know what I mean? I would just hold stuff. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm not cut out for this, because I'll be in a state of anger, and that's just not good for me. So I'm like, okay. Even though I go to them every once in a while. Then I did with Chase Aviar, got me to do a speak out. I was effing terrified to shaking in my knees. But you know what? It was so amazing to see the organization and I was like, damn, this, the way it was organized and the precision and the, I was just it was like I was in a little movie. It was amazing. So that is something that people can definitely learn from. It's and I went to probably about 3 or 4 speak outs during my span. And every one, I was just like, this shit looks and is powerful.
Were those disruptions? You were going in somewhere doing something like that? Or
we were going to a supermarket. And so I did a speak out, and I was so nervous, but I went to a few other ones, and I realized that wasn't for me either, but I see the power in it. Now I see the power. I saw it then, but I really see it now. But yeah, again, that just wasn't for me. It was just too overwhelming, too overstimulating. It's this. And then I got hired by Vegan Outreach, about 6 years ago. And I was another young lady. The first month of working there, we went to HBCUs. And we did leafleting, and, we would just talk with people, and it was a really great experience. It was a great experience. The Black colleges received us really well. We would have some really great conversations with people, so polite and just easy. And when we go to general colleges, it would be a lot of rejection, but people would still be interested on a certain level. So that was a cool experience. Did that for about a month, and then we started doing outreach programs in our own community. So I was responsible for Los Angeles. So I would go to local Black and brown organizations. We did a program with 100 Black men organizations that, they uplift little Black boys and that are in homes where there is no father. And so that we did a little spiel we had someone come in and do some rap with the kids, and we fed them amazing vegan meals. We had collards and beans and mac and cheese. It was amazing. And the kids loved it. And they were like, this is vegan. And the moms came in. So we had so many experiences like that. So I did that for a long time, and not for a long time, for maybe a couple of years. And that was a really successful program because so many people had the conception that vegan food was cold tofu, just lettuce, no seasoning. And so they were eating these foods that really are what they were making anyway at home, just without putting animals in it. And so it was a really, really great program. And then that stopped. And then I started going to events, tabling at colleges, giving out food samples, doing all that stuff. That was driving me crazy. Talking to the public all the time was driving me nuts. And so I started feeling burnt out. But then the one that really shifted the way I see food outreach, during the pandemic, we started doing vegan food programs, a vegan food aid program at Vegan Outreach. And I was responsible for Los Angeles. So we ended up working with, collaborating with Black Lives Matter Los Angeles, Black Women for Wellness, Black Women Farmers of LA, the LGBT Center on off of MLK. And then we later did a program with the African Spirituality Center. And it was amazing. So what we would do is we would have fresh purchased produce and items delivered. We bag everything up, and people would get these huge bags of all these vegetables and kale and collards and spinach and onions and sweet potatoes and red potatoes and tomatoes, and everything would be so fresh, no pesticides. And then we also give them a free vegan hot meal. And people were coming back, and we weren't like passing out leaflets or giving out any information. We're just doing that. And women were literally coming back to us saying, this is the healthiest I've ever eaten in my life. I'm cooking with less animals, or I didn't use any meat when I did the collards, and it was delicious. It was absolutely delicious. I'm walking more. So people's lives were transforming right before my eyes, just with us giving them produce and vegan food. And I did that for till like towards the end of the pandemic, and that's when I decided I wanted to start a vegan food bank, and just do things on my own terms. And I learned so much from vegan outreach, so it was time for me to spread my wings. And I realized that there were no vegan food banks in Los Angeles, which I was surprised. And so I started researching how much it would cost, what I need to do. And I started getting anxiety because the amount of money that I realized I would need, I'm like, I don't think I'm capable of this level. I'm usually good for a couple of grand, but this level, I don't know about this beast. So I started getting really like a lot of anxiety. And so I just was like, you know what, universe, if this is meant to happen, I really need this to manifest beautifully and fall into my lap. I don't want to stress over this. I don't want to work hard on like getting all the pieces to come together. I really need your help. And thank you. And I like sealed it. And it was probably within definitely less than a month. I ended up having this chance meeting with Sonny Kang. He's a pastor of Hope on Union, and we're meeting about another program he's doing at USC with a vegan food program. So I'm talking to him. At the end of the conversation, he's like, yeah, I have a vegan food bank also. And I said, oh, wow, that's great, because he said, I have a food bank. He's like, I have a food bank. And I'm like, well, that's great, because I want to start a food bank, but a vegan one. And I'm like, I didn't realize how much money I would need to just get started. And I still don't even think I know the half of it. He said, well, instead of starting from scratch, why don't you just partner with me and you take over once a month? And he's like, I already have the free, like everything that I needed, he named it. And he was like, I have it and you can use it. And I had shared with him my dream about the cow right before that. And to him, he's like, wow, that makes sense. That makes sense. And we had a conversation about that. And so, so with his partnership and our exchange of energy, it's been a beautiful, beautiful experience. There is no way I could have done this without him. So I always have to give thanks to Sonny Kang of Hope on Union, and not your typical pastor, someone who I feel like, when we think of what Jesus was like in the Bible, like he was cool as fuck. Like he hung out with murderers, thieves, and you know what I mean? And he says, you'll do greater things than me. And have I not told you that you are God's? Like all these empowering things that we forget. And so this pastor embodies more of that, like the real truth. And I appreciated that, even though I'm not into like religion and church, but I appreciate him having his type of perspective and being so open and easy to talk to and being a real person. So yeah, the situation literally fell into my lap just like I asked it to.
That's amazing. And yeah, on that last point you made, I agree. I'm a Christian myself, and I don't really relate to a lot of other Christians because I just think so much differently about things. Like I think about how Jesus was, and anyway, that's a whole other topic. There's so much of what you just said that I really want to dive into. The first thing I want to mention is collaborating with other organizations. So not only the pastor you mentioned, but you were talking about, collaborating with Black Lives Matter and some other groups. I really think that this is critical to the animal rights movement achieving their goals. I think that if we're going to succeed, we have to collaborate with other organizations and we have to somehow make it work. But a lot of people really struggle with that. I think part of the struggle that people have is, they're like, well, these other people aren't vegan, so it's difficult for me to work with them, which I get it. But I want to look to you for some advice for this, because I think a lot of people are trying to make these collaborations and build these bridges. So if you wouldn't mind, could you give us some tips for how to make that work? And also, can you explain to people the value of building those bridges with other organizations, even if they're not vegan?
Yes, and thank you. That's a very good question. It's interesting. I had a situation recently where a white gentleman had been trying to get inside of the ears of a Black female organization. And then he's like, well, I realize I'm not the right person to do this. And somebody said, well, who is? And he pointed at me. This man didn't know me. We were at a vegan function. And he said, her. And I'm like, well, why do you think me? Because I'm Black and I'm a female? He's like, yeah, we got to get them on board and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, what do you know about their organization? So here's one thing that's really important. I'll say this one first. There has to be an exchange of energy. You can't go into some place wanting them to do this, wanting them to do that. You got to do this. They don't have to do anything, but focus on what it is their organization is focused on. You want to create something that is beneficial to both. You want to be a joy for them. When they think of you, they're like, you know what I mean? You want it to be a pleasure on both ends. And so one is finding out, why are they operating? What is the theme of their organization? And you thinking of ways to what it is that you can do to help. So, and it's interesting because this is a process I've been learning as well. Like for me, when all of the George Floyd stuff happened, I was coming into a place where I had been suppressing a lot. So it's like, if I saw a video of, or if there's anything like brutality, I would look for a second and click off, because I'm like, I can't, especially being vegan and being vegan because of animals. It's too much. It's too much. But I had been like that even prior to being vegan. I would just kind of dodge it. But I felt this call to be honest and to allow myself to feel and allow myself to see the videos and to connect. For some reason, I felt like I really needed to connect with the collective on the pain and not dodge. And so I did that. And when I did that, I realized how disconnected I had really been. And I'm saying all that to say, we can never know each other's experiences because you have to live the experience to really know it. But to connect with people and even just be there to listen. The power of listening is so it is healing just to be able to share something that's been on your heart or something that's been on your mind that you feel passionate for, you're grieving for, or you're just going through, and just having somebody sit there and listen and actually care about what you're saying. That's a gift that you can give. It doesn't have to be you coming in solving an issue or telling them the horrors of what's going on in other parts of the world, because they're probably trying to deal with their horrors too. So it's like being gentle, because a lot of organizations are created out of some wound. It's usually some wound, and the wound hasn't healed. So when you go into somebody's wound, be very, very gentle, be very collaborative. And even with the food bank, I couldn't go in there, because it's not vegan every week, just on my week. So I can't go in there saying, oh, what is this doing in the refrigerator? What? There would be no vegan food bank. You got to know when to lose the battle and win the war. And I hate to use that because I don't believe in war. I don't want war. But I'm just using that as an example. Just, there's a lot of times where, I had to like kind of watch my own energy from wanting to feel like, feeling my own triggers. And so it's forced me to like pay attention to my own triggers. So if you do go to an organization that is a Black or brown organization and you make a mistake and say something that is totally, racist, but you didn't mean it, but it's just something that you say, and then people get a little bit upset with you, you got to give a little, you don't have to tolerate being abused. There's a difference. But when we're triggered, we got to give each other a little bit of grace and mercy so we're not constantly pecking at one another in these little weird, and I know that was probably very speciesist. I couldn't think quickly of another word. I'm still a work in progress, y'all. Be gentle with me. But yeah, we got to have grace and respect for one another when we're speaking to each other and when we're coming into a collaborative situation. And we got to take responsibility for our own triggers as well. So when I had the group that Vegans for Black Lives Matter, there were so many triggers. Everybody came into the group angry. Like Black people came in with so much rage. White people came in with so much guilt. And let me tell you, guilt is so toxic. So try not to lead with guilt. If you go into a space that is Black or brown, please work on, and if they're trying to pull a lot of guilt out of you, that may not be the right place for you. But do not lead with guilt, because that is a feeling that is just as toxic and it's draining as anything else. Lead with humbleness and with also power, but also lead with the idea that you're there to learn something too. You're there to receive something too. You're there to expand as well and to evolve. So try to come into those situations thinking like that, more collaborative, and what it is that you can learn and that they can share with you and that you can share with them. And that doesn't put you in the position of vegan supremacy, which is what I call it. And I've been very guilty of it, going into a space because I'm vegan and blah, blah, blah. Let me teach you all thy ways. And that's not how we heal each other and help each other and create to me, real, and this is just my perspective, this isn't everybody's truth, but for the way I operate, the veganism or the animal rights, it has to be in the heart. It has to be in the heart, because you're not going to break your own heart. But to me, when it's just left in logic, and some people are mostly logic, so I get it. But to me, it's like veganism has to be in the heart. So that's why I say using a gentle and a loving approach. And if you struggle with it, it's probably because you're struggling with loving yourself. This is a tough planet to be on, and it makes you question all types of stuff. And I think we all struggle with, self-love and forgiving ourselves for not being vegan when we came out of the womb and not waking up right away. So, it's a process. So be gentle in all things you do. And I'm saying this because I need the reminder too, but be gentle with yourself as a vegan. Give yourself a break from the anger. If you are operating in anger, take a break from it one day and listen to something silly, dance, like do something, you know what I mean? Like you gotta sometimes give yourself a reset from the pain and from all of that. Yeah, because the burnout is real. I experienced it like 3 years in a row. And in the last bout I had with it, I was like, if I don't fix this, I'm going to end up dead from health issues, from having these burnouts and pushing myself too much. And so I had to it took me 6 months to like reprogram myself and to give myself permission to have days where I didn't do anything. But I'd be sitting there feeling anxiety, like, oh God, I'm supposed to be doing something. I just can't sit here. This doesn't make any sense. And I had to tell myself, like, you don't have to be busy to earn your right to rest on this planet. That's a lie. And I'm like, ooh, okay, it is a lie. But it still took a practice until now I'm like, I got it.
It's really interesting that you brought up burnout right there, because that was the next question that I was going to ask about, but I didn't expect the segue from that to burnout. Like, it's very connected what you're talking about. So the last question was talking about, collaborating with other organizations, and you're talking about coming at it from a place of love and having reasonable expectations with other people that you're working with that may not be vegan. And yeah, that I can see how that could burn somebody out if they went into it with the wrong mindset. But I mean, we can all think of somebody in our lives that's like the best person ever, except for they're not vegan, right? And so can we make some room to work with these people who are working toward a better world and are doing so well? And to be honest, the animal rights movement has so much to learn from other movements. Like, if we can just have the opportunity to be around those other movements, and if it advances animal rights in addition to that, then that's even better. But just taking the time in these other spaces to help with other things that need to be advanced in the world, if you have that capacity, but also to learn, because animal rights, we're behind in a lot of spaces. We're just behind in a lot of ways. And this person that you're working with, the pastor, he's not vegan, but man, if you had gone into it with this attitude of, oh, we can collaborate, but you're going to have to make your whole thing vegan and all this. I mean, right. that might have worked, but I doubt it. And because you're willing to collaborate with this person, the vegan food bank exists. And not only that, and I'm not saying this will happen 100%, but you're definitely exposing all these other people to veganism and another way of doing things, because they had probably never even thought about a vegan food bank before you came along, even though they'd been in that space for a while.
Yeah. It's been an amazing journey, because I've also had to learn. I used to create this story of like, I'm the only one that could do this, and so I do everything myself. So I feel like other people would put the passion into it. So I would, nobody's going to do it right. So I would take on all these roles and then complain, oh, nobody's around to help me.
That's a hard thing to overcome too.
Woo! Let me tell you. And so I had to learn to like accept. So like when I started working with the food bank, there were people in place that already knew their shit. And I was almost struggling with it at first. I'm like, okay, I don't have to do this. Like, I didn't know how to feel. I'm like, okay, somebody's doing that. Wow, okay. And I didn't know if I liked it or not. And then I realized, like, this is exactly what you've been wanting to call in. Like, you're wanting to do less. You want a softer life. There are people here that know what they're doing. And so I'd learned to like let it feel good and let it feel like a powerful experience. And so now I still struggle a little bit sometimes, but for the most part, I learned to call in help. So if I'm working on anything in my life, like, oh, people show up for me, people are there for me. If something happens, someone showed and it really starts to shift. That's why for me, speech is so important. I'm still learning to master it, but learning to speak a better world for myself. And that is a tool that I like to use as a form of activism as well, is using the power of your mind and of thinking and prayer and meditation and belief that we can have a better world and that planetary unity is possible in this lifetime, and that we remember that we're brothers and sisters, and that we really love the shit out of each other. We're just these little babies running around here playing these games and thinking that we're separate, but we're really all one. And I'm talking about the animals too. Like, we are on this planet together.
And I'm sure that mindset helps fight that burnout as well, right?
It does. And it's not like I'm being like, hippie or rainbows, fairies, and unicorns. This is a real science. Using the power of thoughts and of your mind and the way you speak. This is scientific. This isn't me just, creating some new age stuff. This is like proven science, how the power of your vocal cords and forming words and your belief in that word and how it actually helps materialize your reality. This is biblical, It's also biblical. It says, as a man thinketh, so he is. It's the same exact thing. So that's the thing that I would really love us to be more conscious of in the animal rights space is, trying to use our words as tools of empowerment and of really helping to shift our world into where we don't eat eating animals is, it really starts to become weird. And I think that unity is possible in this lifetime.
You mentioned the term planetary unity. Can you tell people what you mean by that?
Yeah. So for my this particular perspective, the way I see the world, I see pretty much through certain illusions. I'm still always waking up to different things, but I understood that everybody comes to this planet a free, sovereign human being. You're a baby. Now you do have parents, but then we're born into this reality where it's like, oh, we have police officer. There's these people that wear these blue uniforms and they put these badges on and they tell us that they're in charge and we believe it and we carry it on. And so for me, I realized that badges, uniforms, titles, these are all things we've made up. It's all made up shit. And we're all just playing into it and upholding it with our belief. If we took one day and didn't play into the illusions, this whole shit would just, you may need to delete it. I don't know.
No, I think about that all the time. I think about that so much, you have no idea. And in what you're talking about, with the planetary unity and with the reaching out to other organizations and what you're doing. I mean, it reminds me so much of like Fred Hampton with the Black Panthers, back in the day, because part of the reason that the police, the people that, humanity has artificially raised up to some level of authority over someone else, the reason the police and the FBI thought that he was so dangerous is because he had that ability to unify and create unity, because he reached out to poor white people. He reached out to other people of color that were in gangs, like the Young Lords, for example. He reached out to these people and created what was called the original Rainbow Coalition. And, this was unprecedented, I think, at that time. I don't even think that the FBI and the cops could have predicted that. But when they saw it, they knew the power of it, because the power of people who are unified in this way, even though I'm sure they had a lot of disagreements and very different ways that they view the world, and maybe the relationship wasn't perfect, but creating unity, I mean, it's extremely powerful, and I think extremely underrated. We don't all have to perfectly get along or be best friends even to create unity, but we can create unity toward a common goal. And we have to keep our spaces safe, within that idea, I think, but we can create this kind of unity. And if we can, I think that's a game changer.
Yeah. Yeah. And I never thought it would be possible. Like, I was very pessimistic about that. And, there's nothing wrong with it. You got to see things the way you see it. But I started having these experiences where I would, one, I felt the feeling of peace a few times throughout my life, of what it feels like and what unity feels like. And it's funny because I'm a feeler, and I'm also what we define as empathic, and I can feel a lot of things all the time. And I thought this is how everybody was. I thought, like, yeah, anyhow, it kind of always became like this burden of mine where I would just like, sometimes, like, if I'm in a place a lot of people, like within an hour or two, I'm out. Like, I'm not even saying goodbye. I'm just like out of there because I've like reached my peopleism limit. And so I've always been an avoider of like being too physically close, or because then I feel people's things and I get it confused with mine. I don't know if it's how I'm feeling or if it's how they're feeling. So I have all these experiences. And then I realized one day that it was really a superpower. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is real. Like, the ability to feel is a gift. The ability to feel all the ranges of emotions is a gift. The ability to connect with another human being and maybe even empathize with what they're feeling is also a gift. So I've been training my mind to really see all the beauty, even though I do have my moments where I'm somewhere and I'm like, I'm out. But yeah, I'm not even sure the point I was going with that. I'm so sorry. I will throw us off track in a second.
No, that's all right. And the gift of that level of empathy, I mean, also comes with a lot of, downsides, right? The stress and like when you're feeling what others are feeling, I mean, it's a very powerful thing, but it also can just be devastating at times. And it's hard to know when to sort of like try to cut it off if you can, so that you can function and help the ones that you're, have that empathy for, and when you just need to feel it so that you can remind yourself of what they're going through and how you would want to be treated if you were on the outside of that, and all those things. But on the subject of unity, and I think we talked about it a little bit when we were talking about building bridges with other movements and things, which are really all connected. But what are some concrete steps, if you had to put it into a bullet point list? What are some concrete steps you think that we can take as a species, as members of this planet, to be more unified, or within the animal rights movement to be more unified? Whatever you think is relevant.
Yeah, well, it's the same answer for both. One, it has to first start with yourself. The more you heal yourself, the more you heal the planet. It's law. It's not a one or the other. The more you heal yourself, the more you heal the planet, because you're part of the collective. It's so important that we don't, who am I to tell somebody what to bypass or what not to bypass? Like, we do things when we're able to, but it's good to have awareness, at least. So that maybe you do want to heal that trigger. You're tired of carrying it on your back. You're tired of it being part of your identity. You're tired of it showing up all the time. You're tired of it interrupting. You have the power within yourself to heal that trigger. That's why, like, for me, it's me just taking responsibility for my own life and not waiting for someone else to apologize or to do this, because that's still a form of slavery and entrapment. Waiting for someone else to do something so that you can now move forward. No, I don't want to give anyone that type of control over me. So take responsibility to heal what's hurting in you, and try to see things from a different perspective. I will tell you, I believe in the power of plant medicines. It is by far some of the most life-changing experiences that I've ever had, but that has to be something that you're called to. I won't get into any of that. But just, there are resources that naturally grow from the planet that were placed here to help us when we're stuck in loops and when we're stuck in a certain mindset. And we got a job to do. Some of us came here with some really specific, hardcore stuff, game-changing stuff to do on this planet. And so we don't have time to be stuck in loops and to be walking around holding on to something for a little too long. So sometimes these medicines actually help you to come out of your programming or out of your loop. That's why they're taboo. Because if people were privy to them, it'd be a whole different type of situation. And I don't know if I answered. What was your question again? I tell you, I will get thrown off in a second. You got to edit. You got to do a lot of editing on this one.
No, I'm not, because all those streams have been good. Okay. But yeah, the original question was talking about a bullet point list of how we can be more unified.
Got it. So first, starting with yourself, and that is a daily practice, not a one-time event. Constantly checking in with yourself, starting with yourself, and being gentle with yourself. I can't repeat that enough. Be gentle with yourself. Very important. 2, I would say, when you're out there doing the work that you're doing, whether it's with animal rights or it's in a different field, it's we have to remember everybody's walking around carrying something. And we may not have a clue as to what it is, but I think keeping that in mind and how fragile we all really are. We're all really very fragile human beings, even the strongest one that can take. Everybody's got a fragile point somewhere. So keeping in mind that everyone is working through something, and to do our best to not take rejection personal or correction personal. And that's not easy. And I don't know the steps on that one.
How else will we learn, if we don't correct each other and learn from each other,
Right. And it's not always going to come out sounding cute. Sometimes it might come out because that person is holding on to something. And so now they get to project it and release it onto you. And we all do that. We project, we might be holding on to something from 1989 and this person triggered that. And you're going to catch it for the past 3 years. I didn't say anything. So it's just having grace and mercy. But I know it's not easy in the moment. I know, because sometimes my guards go up for certain things, but just having some awareness, because if at least we can have awareness and how we talk to people and how we forgive. Forgiveness is also and these are great things to do as an activist, because as an activist, the word is active. We're activating things within people. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to activate. We're trying to awaken, create awareness, have people open their eyes, have people see. And regardless of how angry it is or whatever you're doing, there still has to be some self-love and love for the person that you're talking to. Because they've been programmed, they're in the program deep. They're still in it. You know what I mean? So it's not their fault. They came here to the planet. You know what I mean? So it's if we can just kind of treat people like we love them. And I'm not saying you got to walk around, you can't just force love, but I'm just saying if we just remember that, there's really no separation, we're all brothers and sisters here. For me, it's all about the unity. Like you were talking about Malcolm X and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., they were unified because they believe humans, we're humans, we need to be treated equal. They both believed that, and that was the truth. So there was unity. And that's why when I even say planetary unity now, yeah, of course I would love us all to be holding hands and skipping and jumping rope and all that stuff, but I don't think that's going to happen this lifetime. But what I'm saying, it doesn't mean that you don't disagree. It doesn't mean that you are beaming your eyes are beaming light towards the person. You may not like the person. In the animal rights movement, we don't all like each other. There's drama, there's infighting, there's this, there's lies, there's rumors, there's all types of things, but we all do agree on one thing, that animals should not be eaten. We all agree on that for whatever reason. So that's unity. So we do have it. We just need more layers of it.
That's a really good way to put it. We have not even fully, talked about the food bank yet. Please share with us the amazing work that you've been putting in at the food bank in Los Angeles. I think this is just an incredible initiative that is, you're making multiple impacts with one project, for humans, for animals. It's just so beneficial for the community. Just tell us all about it.
Yeah, thank you. So the food bank started last May, and we've been going strong. We operate once per month. It's usually every third Thursday of the month. We open at 8 a.m. and we're open till 10 a.m. But within those 2 hours, we provide for approximately up to 400, sometimes a little bit over, but approximately 400 families. Thank you. And, the goal is to not exist. You know what I mean? Like, so I could become a travel influencer or something like that. But yeah, the goal is to have free food resource centers in every zip code. Like, I say that a lot because it would be nice if someone manifested that. I don't know who's going to do it. I don't know if I want it to be me, but I'm at least putting it out there so somebody can do it. But so to me, the planet already comes with food. We didn't, you know what I mean? Like, you come here, there's already water, there's already food, there's caves, there's trees, there's certain things that are already here. So, and I'm not trying to be anti-capitalist. That's not my fight. I have no interest in that conversation at all. So I'm not saying don't have businesses, don't have restaurants. Like, I enjoy all of that stuff. What I'm saying is no one should have to earn eating. You shouldn't have to have a job so that you can eat. You shouldn't have to be productive to eat. I'm just talking about basics here. I'm not talking about going to restaurants or things like that. So to me, food is our birthright. And we have these little programs, EBT and all these different things that make you qualify for it, but it's already your birthright to have fresh, healthy, nutritious food. And I went through a bit of a struggle when I first came to LA, and I found myself in like dealing with poverty. I went from abundance to poverty. And I remember one week having like $5 to my name to eat with. And it was terrifying. And I understand how when a person cannot cover their basic needs, nutritional needs, your light dims. Your hope starts to diminish. You start to think a little bit. You become more fearful. I know for me, I started thinking like, well, what if I just go? I started thinking of like stealing. I started like thinking like, what if but I was too scary to do it. But I thought about it. Some people actually will do it, to provide for themselves, to provide for their family. Then they get caught up and then they're in the system and now they can't do this. And it more dark energy and thoughts manifest from there. And then you got a neighborhood filled with crime. And now it's a ridiculous cycle, and it's unnecessary, especially in a city that is one of the wealthiest cities in the world. It makes no sense. The level of food waste that happens on this planet, it would horrify you. When I started this, I thought I wanted to be an expert in food waste because it was like a new area. But when I say it had me angry and pissed off, I was like, I can't do this because I'm in a dark place constantly when I'm like researching this stuff. So I'm like, let me go back into the food bank world and get back in there. But anyhow, the food bank exists as a source of hope. And I want to take the stigma away from like receiving free food. Like we make it like, oh, they must be poor, going through something, but everybody goes through economic hardships at some point in their lives. You know, you never know when you're going to need help, and we've made it look like a dirty, weird thing. Where it's like, this is your birthright. You're supposed to be getting free food. Maybe you don't need to come and stand in the line, but free food is everyone's birthright. And so, to me, that is one of the illusions that I'm working on changing, is that everyone has to have money in order to eat. And I don't want that to be anymore. The earth, she gives freely of herself, of the food, of the abundance. She doesn't want us charging people just to have their basics. So,
Yeah, I think taking that stigma away is super important too, because you know, I mean, many of us are conditioned, I guess, to have some sort of ridiculous pride about some things that, you know, shouldn't really matter. But yeah, I mean, you know, and you mentioned how that cycle can just get started very quickly, and you know, maybe the cycle starts with 1 week or 1 month where, you know, somebody's income was less than they needed, and maybe they only need the food bank for that 1 week and they got on track. But if the food bank had not been there, that cycle you're talking about, you know, would have been perpetuated right then. And once you start going into it, it's
hard to get out of it.
It's hard to get out. I mean, just like with debt, for example, you know, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, for example, and you're getting by, you're doing okay, but then like one thing happens, whether it's a medical emergency, a family emergency, you know, any one little thing that throws a pebble into those cogs, I mean, that can, you know, start a spiral.
It'll change that person's whole trajectory when all they initially needed was to just eat, have some food. You know, not all issues stem from that, but a lot do. You know, there's a lot of hunger on this planet, and there's a lot in this country, and there's, especially in the United States, I won't speak of other countries, but United States of America, there is no excuse. There is none. There's no excuse.
Yeah, there really isn't. And I'm so thankful that you're doing this work, and not only doing the work, but you know, you're not looking at it as, oh, I'm helping these poor people. You're like, oh, well, this is a birthright, you know, and I'm just helping facilitate this. You know, I think that's just a wonderful way to look at it.
That's right. That's right. And you said it exactly perfectly. Like, it's a manifestation of someone's call. Someone was calling this forth, and I guess I was the closest one to catch it. And it makes sense. You know, if I had not had that experience, as dark as it was, I don't think I could see it from this perspective. So even that, as painful as that whole chapter of my life was, it was worth it. It's now, because I'm doing this from a place in my heart that, you know, it's possible I could still have the food bank, but I don't think there would be this level of love and level of understanding had I not had my own experience. So I have no regrets.
You're doing such great work, and you're doing a lot of work, and there's such thoughtfulness to a lot of this work that you're doing, and like we talked about earlier, sometimes that thoughtfulness and that empathy can bring you down in some ways. I'm wondering if you can share with people if you have any tips for self-care to make sure that you're able to do this for the long run, because the work you're doing is so important. I mean, if you burn out, then the movement would lose, somebody that's making a huge impact. So can you talk about that just a little?
Yes, absolutely. I think one of the most important things that you can do is not do something. So when you feel like you're starting to push yourself, that is the first indicator that you need to stop. If you feel like, okay, I got to push myself up, now you go into the red zone. And most of us will just continue with the story. I got to push myself. And here's somebody else saying, yeah, I'm pushing myself this week. I'm tired, but I need to just show up for the animals. And then that person gets cheered because they're pushing themselves and they're doing it till it hurts. And it's an inconvenience, but I'm here and I'm exhausted, but I showed up. We got to stop applauding that and stop encouraging it because it's really unhealthy. And when I went through my burnout, and everybody in the movement always says, oh yeah, take time for yourself, don't get burnt out. But when that organization doesn't benefit from it, like if there's an organization where I've had to I can't show up for this because I just don't have the capacity, I'm burnt out, they get upset. All that gentleness goes out the window based on my experience. And so we really have to know when to say no. Yeah, there's a protest tomorrow and only 10 people are showing up and I can barely get out of bed and I just need a day to myself. Don't push it. They will be just fine. The world is not going to stop because you didn't show up to this particular thing or because you didn't go. You have to know when to say no. And that is, I know probably people are going to roll their eyes listening to this part because they're not ready yet. But I am telling you, it is so important to say, I can't come. Send a text, send a voice memo if you don't want to talk to the person, but you have to know when to start saying no. And it's going to probably feel bad at first or have some weird feelings. Let them go, let them feel them and let them go right on through you. But you'll be grateful in the end that you took some time for yourself. So I can't reiterate that enough, is knowing when to say no. Putting yourself first. It is not bad to put yourself first. That is a form of love. Putting yourself first and making sure, because again, if you can't sustain what you're doing and you fall flat, then yeah, like you said earlier, then we don't have the benefit of this person. Now they're going to be out double the time and it's not going to feel good. You want to take time off while you're feeling good, while you're doing okay. Don't wait until you feel bad. Take time while you feel good. Go play. For me, when money would be lean, it's like, okay, I'm going to go to the movies. Let me go catch a matinee and be in this other world for a minute, taking a walk. I know LA or other places are such hikers. Everybody's like a hike. I don't like hiking that much, but a lot of people love hiking. Whatever your ideal day is, going to the beach or just sitting there and doing nothing. One of my forms of freedom that I like to do when everything is just quiet. And I'm like, I will watch some most smutty reality TV. Like, I love to watch drama. I don't want to be the drama, but I will watch it. So find something, just whatever your little fun is, make sure you indulge in that regularly. So everything that I'm saying is all about taking care of yourself, because the better we treat ourselves, the better we take care of ourselves, it's going to catch on to other people. People are going to want your joy, your peace. That's we all just want to be happy. That's what I think. I think everybody just really wants to be happy. And that's, again, it starts with yourself. I can't say that enough. It starts with you. You can't change anyone else. You can try. You can make an attempt, or they can make you feel like they did. You can temporarily, but the only person you truly, 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 truly can change is yourself. Yourself. You are the only one that you can truly change. So imagine 1 million people shifting and their hearts open. Well, you think that's not going to spill over to the collective? We're all energy. And again, this is science. This isn't me just being new agey. This is science. Look it up. We affect each other's frequencies when we're near one another. So again, you got to catch me because I'll just keep talking.
No, I think all of those are amazing points. And beyond just self-care, what you said about creating a culture of self-care, which is respecting when you need help and somebody else needs to practice self-care and take a break. We have to figure out ways around that and, figure out creative solutions when we run into an issue, because it is very important for us to give our fellow activists the space that they need to take care of themselves, because we want to be able to rely on that person for the long run and not just tear it all apart for this one protest that's going to, potentially send them into a cycle of burnout if they don't take a break.
Because we all have different capacities. So initially when I got in the movement, my capacity, I've always, my whole life, had a very high capacity to function and do multiple things and to be 10 places at once. And I brought that into the movement. And then one day I felt it shifting. I was like, well, why am I getting tired? And I was in denial because I thought that meant I was getting old or crickety. And I was like, so I kept pushing myself because I was in denial that my capacity was changing. And if that happens with you, it's okay. If your capacity to do more now becomes for you to do less, it might be, I don't know, your soul, your body saying, hey, we're getting a little bit tired here. Let's do less in the world. Let's rest more. So, but I'm also saying that too, as leaders, anyone that is a leader of an organization, you cannot assume that everybody has the same capacity to function, the same capacity to protest for 2 hours, the same capacity to work 8 hours a day. 8 hours a day work is really abnormal. We should not be like that. Is slavery.
That's a whole topic of itself.
So, and it's unnatural for the body to be working 8 hours a day. It really is, even if you've mastered it. So we have to, as leaders, make sure that we are not forcing people beyond their natural organic capacity to function. So that's something to be very cognitive of if you're a leader, is to not make that assumption. And to also just be gentle with people. I don't know, a work environment or an organization, it should be more like community and family, where we can talk to each other, we can trust one another. And anyway, I'm going into a whole nother tangent.
Yeah, I think that's important too, being able to talk to each other and share new ideas and talk to each other about when you might be wrong, whether it's an interpersonal thing or whether it's a strategy thing. Let's talk about what's working and what's not and all that. But you've been very generous with your time. I want to ask you one last question. Okay. And you just gave some good advice, but I wonder if, and that was specific to self-care, but do you have any advice for brand new activists? So people that might be listening to this that are just getting into the movement, just starting to find their path as far as activism goes. Are there any words of wisdom that you could share with people like that?
Yeah, I would say as you're coming into it, because usually young activists, we come into this thing, I'm saying we, like I am young, but young ones usually come into it very fiery and ready, charge. And we need some of that, we need that energy too. And I'm going to use some of the same language I've been using. You also too need to be gentle with yourself. And I know when I first got in this movement, like I would be in these Facebook groups, and it would be these groups of, animal rights activists or vegans or recipes or things like that. And then new people would come in the group with such these little pure hearts. And they come in like, oh, I slipped up yesterday and had some milk, or I ate some meat. What do you do to get back on track? And people were like coming down on this like, you see, you check back, and I was like 500 comments. And it's like, why would you even be the 100th comment? Like, why are you all swarming in? And so I say that because it's very easy to get into these mob mentalities and to feel like you got to hit people where it hurts, and you got to be angry with them, and you got to be upset with them. And you may be mimicking something that went on in your household. So we got to make sure that we're having awareness and that we're being gentle. I'm not saying be a pushover. And I'm not saying don't get angry. You know, we're humans, we do that. But have compassion for the fact that these humans are still, again, under the programming. And we're trying to deprogram them. Usually when you're deprogramming something, you're not harsh with it. You're kind of gentle and you know what I mean? So anyway, just keeping in mind that everyone is here to have their own level of awakening, but just be gentle in how you're doing it if you can. I will also say, have fun with this. Have fun with the movement. Let's not stay in the gloom and doom of it, because we know what that is. But there's also other fun aspects of the movement. It's a whole spectrum. So you got the spectrum of like rescues, marches, protests, foodie, travel, this. Play with the whole spectrum. You're allowed to. You're allowed to have a good time while you're helping shift and change people's hearts and minds. So have a good time with this movement. Don't just stay in the dark part of it, because there's also a beautiful side to this as well. We've made so many advances. The food technology is absolutely amazing. The food just keeps improving, getting better. People are starting to wake up. I'm seeing more vegans of color than I've ever seen since I've been in this movement, and that just makes my heart so happy. I'm seeing more companies, reject fur, reject leather, and that's happening all because of everyone that's in it. The good, the hardcore, the soft, all of it is all helping. Everybody is helping change and shift. And I think that's beautiful, but don't forget to enjoy the fruits of your labor as well. Have a good time. We need people to also be happy and not just be walking around sad and focusing on what's happening every second. So we already know that part. And then I would just say, when it comes to how we are with one another, and I know this is a whole journey, but just giving each other grace and mercy. I think we give, and I'm talking about the activists, giving each other grace and mercy and remembering that we are united. We just may not agree with this thing or that thing, but giving each other grace and mercy, because the more we infight, and I've been a part of infighting. I've started drama, been in drama, so I'm not trying to be on a judgy soapbox or anything. I've been a part of it. But the less of that we have, the more that we can come together and really unite. So imagine the animal rights movement just really tightening up with their unity. It would be absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And I'm here for it.
Yeah, I think unity's been a big theme throughout this episode, and
it's the solution to everything for me. What's the advice? What's the advice? Unity. What's the advice? Unity.
Exactly. Gwenna, it has been an honor to meet you. Thank you for being so gracious with your time. Thank you for all the wisdom you've imparted on me and everybody that's listening to this. It's just been incredible. I feel like I could talk for 3 more hours. This has been so wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. And you asked some really amazing questions, and I felt like this was a good one. So thank you so much. I enjoyed myself.
I told you all that episode would be worth the listen. We covered so many different topics, and I hope that you all learned as much from Gwenna as I did. Be sure to follow Vegans of Los Angeles and all of her work. I'll put all the social media information in the show notes. Thanks again for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, please take a quick minute to rate and review the podcast. It helps others find it more easily, and the more people that find it, the more people can be inspired by guests like Gwenna interviewed on our show and turn that into actionable change for the animals. If you're listening on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe. Our channel has educational workshops, talks, and other inspiring and informative content that you won't want to miss. At AAM, it's important to us to offer our content and resources for free so that it is accessible to everyone. If you like the podcast and all of the resources AAM has to offer and are able to support us, please consider a one-time donation or becoming a monthly patron. It all helps us keep going. To make a donation, you can use our link tree, which can be found in the show notes. You can also use the link tree to keep up with AAM on social media, visit our bookshop, visit our merch store, and keep up with everything animal activism mentorship. One more reminder that you can sign up for a free mentor to help you with your activism at animalactivismmentorship.com. If you needed a sign that you should be an activist for animals, this is it. Remember that it will take all of us to achieve animal liberation. Stay focused, be effective, and keep doing your part. Until next time.